After a couple of strategic turns, you finally lost the cops. You and your two best friends come running inside, out of breath, and rip off your sweaty ski masks. The heist was a success. 3 brand new factory-sealed PS5s successfully stolen from your local Radio Shack. 1 for each of you. You and your friends have always been broke, yet discerning gamers, and you only have enough money for 5 games between the 3 of you. You distrust the review scores from large media outlets, and your friends are terrified of wasting your hard-stolen money on games that turn out to be terrible. Right before you break down and start crying out of fear of overrated games that are secretly bad, you find this video. Disclaimer: the first part is a joke. I am not advocating for theft. Disclaimer B: this is a subjective list of games that lots of other people really like that I did not. That is the qualification. Recommended by others, not by me. I'm not saying they're objectively bad, and if you enjoy them, that's totally valid and you have my respect. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Game 1. Hogwarts Legacy. You're gonna detect a theme for this video very quickly. That theme is gonna be bloated, undercooked open world games that are much longer than they are fun. Specifically, with some kind of gimmicky wallpaper to trick people into thinking it's not as generic as it is. Hogwarts Legacy is awesome for about 5 or so hours. It nails its Harry Potter look and feel, and the gameplay is pretty serviceable early on. However, as the story progresses, the characters, gameplay, and RPG systems never really go much deeper than how they start out. Hogwarts Legacy dumps a lot of mechanics and story threads on you in its first few hours, which gave me the impression there was a lot more going on here than there really is. I platinumed the game after about 55 hours, and the last 50 of those were an absolute slog. Stuff like capturing magical beasts by pressing square or solving a Merlin trial by lighting a couple of braziers is cool a couple times, but once you realize that's all there is to do past a certain point, you'll probably have wished you bought something else. If you want to play games to unwind with a beer after a long day at work, this is a great game to play inebriated because it's not very challenging and you don't have to pay attention to much. And if you're an HP fan, then you might want to take a look around Hogwarts because it's actually pretty cool. But if you A, value your time, or B, like a little engagement to go with your book series tie-in, I recommend you skip this one. Trophy hunters especially beware because this is the most boring platinum I have ever done, bar none. Game 2, Horizon Forbidden West. This might be the most controversial pick on this list. For most of these games, the people who sold me on the game were games journalists I wound up disagreeing with. For this game, it was actually Sony. Seeing Aloy in the marketing for PS5 along with Ellie, Nathan Drake, Kratos, and other iconic PlayStation characters gave me really high expectations for this game. Sony was ranked as the highest rated games publisher on Metacritic for the year 2022, and for good reason. I'm normally a big supporter of their first-party stuff, even games that are controversial or only for a niche market. This is really the only proper PS Studios title I feel is truly lackluster. It has the graphical presentation, character animation, and score of a top-shelf first-party PlayStation title, but the gameplay is just okay, and the story just wasn't there for me. Spending every encounter slowing down time and shooting purple weak points, collecting berries, or engaging with its optional stealth mechanics never really hooked me in the way I hoped for. This game does a lot of things: melee and ranged combat, stealth, Watch Dogs style hacking, and Arkham City style detective mode. But it doesn't do any one thing particularly well, and when stretched out to all of its open world content, I just got bored. The writing was more sci-fi exposition than character development, and I never really bought into the high-stakes nature of the game's plot. If you're a graphics guy or gal, liked the first one, or want to appreciate Lance Reddick's contribution, this might be for you. For anyone else looking for an awesome open-world PlayStation exclusive, I'd recommend you skip this one and pick up Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut instead. Game 3, Dying Light 2. I was a huge fan of Dead Island when it originally came out. My squeaker friends and I would pile into a golf cart and dismember zombies for hours and hours. The game was a total blast and will always be a fond memory of mine. Dying Light 2 is the same dev, so I was hoping I'd like it, but I was very wrong. The game has several marketable gimmicks, including parkour zombie killing and a day-night cycle that changes the gameplay completely, but it plays out just kind of mediocre across the board. Killing zombies using parkour or floating around in a parachute can definitely be entertaining, but it's really the only part of the game that is. The story, side quests, and open world structure give you a ton to do with very little motive to actually do it. The experience is very reliant on the player finding the moment-to-moment gameplay engaging, and considering how long it is and how a lot of its best ideas are locked deep into an upgrade tree, it wears thin really fast. Like I said earlier, it's an open world game that is much larger than it is fun, and its zombie parkour hook can't sustain its novelty over the course of its content. If you liked Dying Light 1, you might like this. If you buy games and play very little of them, you might like this. But for all the other zombie-oriented gamers out there, the PS5 has much stronger titles. Game 4, Alan Wake Remastered. It really pains me to put this on here, because I absolutely love the tone and style of this game. Remedy knows how to create a strong atmosphere and a mystery that draws you in. That's true of both Control and Alan Wake. What ultimately does Alan Wake in is its monotony. Classic shooters like Halo or BioShock sustain themselves over their runtime with great game feel, enemy variety, and level design. Alan Wake has solid game feel when it comes to shooting, but almost completely ignores the concept of enemy variety or really any other design tools to differentiate the first half from the second. You pick up some flares and a shotgun, but Alan Wake's version of challenge and progression is mostly just more. More guns, more ammo, more enemies. The shooting is passable, but especially considering the fact that it's supposed to be some degree of tense or scary, I really wish they'd done something to spice it up deeper into the game. The first few encounters might have you on the edge of your seat, but I was completely tired of it by the time I rolled credits. I normally like to 100% complete games, and I didn't even contemplate a second playthrough of this game for a second. People who like Twin Peaks flavored stuff, or perhaps fans of Control, might like this, but I think anyone else eyeing this title would be much happier with the RE2 remake or RE7 in the long run. Game 5, Deathloop. This is the highest rated game on this list, and probably the game with the biggest disparity between the general critical reception and my personal experience with the title. Deathloop has a fantastic art style, nearly unanimous praise from games journalists, and leading up to launch, a massive marketing budget from Sony. When combined with my fondness of the original Dishonored, I was left completely befuddled upon my completion of its main campaign. Deathloop's story is primarily exposition justifying why you have to play through the same 4 simplistic levels several times. The game is you, playing through these levels at different times a day, figuring out which order you need to play them in order to roll the credits. The levels all contain the same exact copy and pasted basic enemy type, and the mystery aspect only plays out in the dialogue, requiring 0 player engagement. You have to figure out absolutely nothing on your own, and it would actually be hard to screw up the grand finale run. When combined with how simplistic and easily outsmarted the enemy AI is, especially compared to Dishonored, it feels like Deathloop achieves a sense of accessibility at the cost of engagement. The main campaign feels like you're playing some sort of challenge mode add-on because it's the same content repeated with different enemy positions and slightly different objectives. It feels like it could have been side content or DLC for a much stronger main campaign. It treats its time loop idea like a gameplay mechanic when it's really more of a story gimmick, and what you're left with on the gameplay front feels hollow compared to other Arcane titles. If you like combat training from Black Ops 1 multiplayer, or walking around shooting citizens in GTA 5 while listening to a podcast summarizing the movie Looper, Deathloop is a great pick. For other Arcane fans, I might recommend sticking to your fond memories of Dishonored or buying a Series X. Once again, if you like any of these games, that's totally valid. This list is a reflection of my taste, not an insult to yours. If there's an overrated game you think I missed, let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.